this point forward. 3,200 is kind of our model. So looking at Waxahachie Creek High School, not a different design than this building, but a similar capacity to this building of around 3,200 students max capacity. We're looking to open up that building in August of 2027, most likely with freshmen and sophomores for the first opening. And it would have juniors and seniors zoned for Waxahachie Creek would attend WHS for 27, 28. And so for the Creek in 28, 29, we'll add juniors. So 29, 30 would be the first year we'd have all 4 grades at Waxahachie Creek. Our course offerings at Waxahachie Creek will be very, very similar to what we're offering here. There was, in the first town hall or second town hall, we kind of got in a little bit of confusion when we talked about academic programs. But your on-level courses, your AP courses, your dual credit courses, all in the core curriculum, your math, science, language arts, social studies, that kind of thing, that's going to be exactly the same. We're going to offer the same type of courses here that we offer at WHS at Creek. Where we see maybe a few slight differences would be in CTE, because this is a very specialized area of the building, and so we were shooting for about an 80% overlap between both campuses. So WHS will have some things that Creek may not have, and Creek will have some things that WHS may not have or different. And I'll kind of get into that a little bit when we talk about the building. Another thing, we use the term comprehensive high school as our second comprehensive high school, Waxahachie Creek. And what we mean by that comprehensive, we mean all the stuff, all the academics, all the fine arts, all the athletics, and the CTE piece. This is not to say we don't already have 2 high schools. We do. We have Global High School as an early college high school, but it is not a comprehensive high school. You don't have a band there. There's no football, softball, baseball, that kind of stuff. It's really an early college high school with a focus on dual credit and CTE. Every student at Global is in the CTE program there too. So that's where that comprehensive high school comment, that descriptor comes from, is that we're talking about all the stuff. So we've started building Waxahachie Creek High School. We were out there today, actually. We had our weekly construction meeting at Creek at that big job trailer right there. That's the main job trailer on the site. That's where we were today. So we broke ground on December 3rd. Our designs were completed on the 20th. We've already pretty much got some of the underground utilities already done. We are in the process now. None of this stuff is the real flashy stuff like that you see when the building starts going vertical. This is all the things that have to happen before you can do that. So all the stuff that'll be covered up by dirt afterwards, all the plumbing, all the sewer, all the stuff like that, getting the building ready to run the power, all those things. And so, but we're actually right now pouring grade beams. So kind of laying the foundation, the outside foundation of the buildings. We're doing that as we speak. And if you look at a drone shot of the building, you can see kind of where things are going to be on that building. And we'll talk about that. They've already got their final building permits, and we're in the final design phase of our Ag Barn facility. That was also a question about, we have an agri-science facility here at WHS. Will we have a similar situation at Creek? Yes. We know our community, obviously, and it's a big part of one of the largest programs of CTE programs on this campus is our ag program, our FFA program. When we built that building, it quickly filled up in the swine barn and the sheep and goat barn and the cattle barn. So we know that as our district grows in kids, we're going to grow that program too. So there will be an agri-science facility on that campus.
Before you go on, just reorienting everybody to where we're talking. This is Old Italy Road that's going out this way, and the drone is kind of at the corner of Old Italy and where Spur 394 will be meeting. So
right here, this is I-35 and then 77. You really can't see 77, but it's running right there next on the other side of those trees. That's the Senior Citizen Center right there. So that's north, this is south. Spur 394 is going to come tee into that old was it called the Ganaway Bridge? Now it's called Waxahachie Crossing Bridge. It's going to tee in there and come right across the front of our property, eventually tee into Howard Road, and at its completion will go all the way to 287 when it's done. TxDOT is committed to the first 1.6 miles of that road, which is going to take it from 35 to Howard Road. Okay, so yeah, and And the property itself, this, obviously this is the high school piece. The district owns, I think it's around 45 acres on this side. And this piece of property on the other side of the spur will be the future home of Junior High 4 when it's time for Junior High 4. That's where we're going to build that. Waxahachie Creek High School, the front entrance is right around this area. It will face south. The front entrance of Junior High 4 will face north right across the street.
Your front entrance is down a little bit further.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. But anyway, we're going to go through front entry and building layout. So just kind of wanted to orient everybody that we're looking from the southeast back on the campus property at this point.
And you can kind of see, like, that looks like a softball field because that's what it is. Over here, that looks kind of like tennis courts because that's what those are. This big space in the middle is going to be your football field, practice fields, and a small non-varsity stadium. Over here is where your baseball field will be, and then that agriculture science center is going to be over here in this corner. So that kind of orients you as far as the building is concerned, how the layout is. So that's what the front entrance is going to look like. You notice there's a blue on there. We said this, we've been saying this for a while. We haven't landed on colors yet. We're going through this process this summer for zoning, and we hope to bring a recommendation to our board at the August 11th board meeting so they can determine, they can go ahead and bless the zoning plan. And then once we get that done, we'll actually know which kids from where are going to go to Creek, which kids from where are going to go to WHS. And then we will reignite the colors and mascot part of the discussion about Waxahachie Creek. We did a lot of pre-work last fall. You may have been involved in that. So when we had meetings at Coleman, Finley, and Howard, where we had students and parents and staff and what we may call legacy folks in WISD history that were there, and gave a lot of input on what mascots we may be playing on Friday night. And we looked on, the first thing they found was a whole lot of cats. We don't want to really be a cat of any kind because we can play a panther or a leopard or a wampus cat or whatever. We may want to be something different than that. So anyway, that process, we'll kickstart that back up with our architects, VLK, and we'll go through that. Hopefully get kicked off about in September or October so we can land on that. It is kind of important for the design people to kind of know exactly what colors they're going to be picking out. But there are ways from that, but they would rather have it earlier than not. TxDOT wants to know what the zoning is so they can know where people are coming from. The city would like to know what the mascot is in case they want to name a street after something. So, there's a lot of things that are kind of important as we go along. Okay, so this is the building itself, a floor plan of it. Like we said, this is the front entrance. This faces south, okay? And so the orange piece is your administrative suite. The dark blue you see here, those are your science wings. The lighter blue colors are your more academic classrooms. Yellow is your library and multi-purpose room. This, I guess, a kind of a reddish salmon color is your kitchen and cafeteria. The pinkish is fine arts. So you've got an auditorium, band hall. This is your studio arts. This would be choir. This is the theater arts. Scene shop, black box, different classrooms with that. This teal area over here is CTE, and then the green is athletics. One thing about, we have a pretty large yard, paved yard for CTE, and right here, this little rectangle in the corner is a paint booth, paint shop for CTE. So we don't have a paint booth here at WHS, and so it'll be nice to have one in the district that's static. It's not going anywhere. It's there. It's permanent. And so both campuses will be able to use that. But in athletics, here's your arena. Then you have your girls and boys locker rooms, team room, practice gyms, and then your indoor athletic facility and weight room. And another thing about Creek is that what we don't have here, which was in a Prop D of the bond that didn't pass, was a standalone field house for football on this campus. So you're looking at weight rooms, locker rooms, team rooms, coaches' offices, etc. So that'll be built on that site as well.
So they won't have to be bussed over?
Correct. Yeah, they will not. Here's the second floor. A lot of that's kind of duplicated from top to bottom, right? Your science wings, your science classrooms, your labs, then your academic core area, second floor, the admin suite. And you say that's kind of the heart of the building where all the support is for the rest of the campus, for your principals, assistant principals, counselors, registrar, all that stuff. One area I forgot to mention last time, this purple area right here is pretty much your separate setting sped classrooms. And there's actually a loop right here. You can kind of see the outline right there of an awning. So there will be an entrance for our sped kiddos that need that kind of help right here off the campus. So it's easier for parents to drop off and easier for our buses to get them there. And then, when you live in a building, just like when you live in a house, you go, I wish I would have done something different. We put a door there or a window, whatever. Well, one of the areas here that we know we have an issue with is cheer and dance. They have a space to practice, and then they have a locker room and restrooms and such, an office, but they share it. Okay, and so that didn't really work. Right now, cheer is off-site. Cheer is at Lumpkins for the most part, and so dance has that space. In this building, we believe we address that with this is a dance cheer practice space. It's big enough for a 9-panel mat, which is what cheer needs to prepare for their state competitions and to practice tumbling and stunts. They will have their own. Each program will have its own restrooms, locker rooms, office, and storage. So they're not going to have to be on top of each other. They got a lot of equipment. They got a lot of stuff, those two programs. So we were able to address that. And that's at the second floor of the athletic wing right there. And everything else is pretty much duplicated. Okay, I think it's your turn.
All right. So at this point, we have a design for a building and we're starting to build it. And we have an idea of the programs that are going to go into it. They look a lot like this building. They look a lot like Waxahachie High School's programs with some minor changes in certain areas, specifically CTE. But the one thing that we're really working through at this point, and the purpose, part of the purpose of this town hall, is to talk about zoning, is what students are going to be going to Waxahachie Creek when it opens. So we started this process back in January with some town halls about safety and security, and we added some rezoning topics to it. At that time, we got feedback from our community. We said, when opening Waxahachie Creek, do you prefer 9 only, 9 and 10, or just not really have a preference? The majority of the respondents, about 53% of them, said that grades 9 and 10 would be their preference in opening Waxahachie Creek High School, and then about 40% said 9th grade only, and then about 7% told us that they had really no opinion one way or the other. So in keeping in mind grades 9 and 10 and any student population that we're putting at Waxahachie Creek, we started identifying as an administration what are the important things to us for this zoning process. So we identified socioeconomic balance. We would love to have pure junior high campus feeders. That really makes it a whole lot easier for those elementary kids that are feeding into junior high, and they know that we're going to this high school instead of, well, I don't know, hold on, let's go look at the map. Oh, your street is the one that's the line between these two high school programs. It also makes it easier for our staff to go down to the junior highs and work with those students to prepare them for that high school transition. In a perfect world, we would love to be in different UIL districts. We don't control UIL alignment, so there's not a whole lot that we can do there, but the goal was not necessarily to have the exact same enrollment at the two campuses. Let each adjust to the growth in our town and the student population, let Waxahachie Creek grow into its campus and not necessarily have to be competing against Waxahachie High on day one. And then we want to efficiently utilize our campuses. We're using taxpayer dollars. We don't want to have one campus sitting at 3,000 and the other one sitting at 500 as a student enrollment. Will that happen? It could happen, just depending on the zones that are drawn, but it's likely not to happen. So that was part of our goal is, hey, we really don't want to overtax one building at the expense of the other for the sake of the community. So after the initial town halls in January, we got feedback, and essentially the responses were, for the first 4 items, all of the things that we had identified as kind of our goals and priorities. Total enrollment, so we're talking about efficiency of use, keeping schools from competing against each other, reflect the demographics of the area, and then pure junior high campuses. We got pretty good responses on those 4. One that was a pretty heavily responded to, almost 50%, was travel time to Waxahachie Creek. Unfortunately, I can't control that a lot, but we could definitely can try to minimize that impact as much as we can. So we took that kind of to mean the closer in proximity you are to Waxahachie Creek, the greater likelihood you're going to go to Waxahachie Creek, and not necessarily pick and choose from, say, the upper ends of our district or the western boundaries of our district and force students into Waxahachie Creek where it doesn't make sense. And so those are kind of the priorities that we work through for zoning purposes. Easiest way that we've been talking about it, and this is a little bit of a change from the last two town halls that we did, we're showing you based off elementary feeder. So we know what the elementary feeders are currently. There's one minor change that's reflected on this map. This zone right here, Dunaway kind of does a little jut out into the Wedgeworth zone right over here. We did smooth that out along 1446. That is a proposal that we will take to the board. It impacts 5 students, I believe, was the number. So it was not a significant impact throughout the district, but it just made for a cleaner, as you go down 1446, you know where that line is. So right now, the dark line that you kind of see here, that would be the proposed elementary split between Waxahachie High and Waxahachie Creek. The last two town halls where we were talking, the only significant change is Marvin. The last time we were talking, Marvin was actually slated to go to Waxahachie High School, and in this proposal, it's slated to go to Waxahachie Creek. This is our most updated proposal. This would be High School Plan 3, and that was mainly based off feedback that we had received, but it also dovetails into the junior high feeder plan. So at this point, we have a plan to show pure junior high feeders. So we'd have pure elementary, pure junior high into the high schools. And so
just a reminder, it's not up here on here because Wyoming STEAM is a choice campus, and so the students that choose that campus, they would go back to where they're zoned. So they may be coming from Cliff to go there, but they'll go back to where they're zoned.
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
why they're not on the.
So as of right now, Dunaway, Simpson, and Northside all feed to Finley, so they would not be a pure feeder.
Dunaway, Simpson, and Northside are going into Finley, yes. And so going forward, we would have, hold please. Hold please. So a re-envisioned junior high plan. This is again thinking of that 4th junior high that Dr. Averett talked about a minute ago, is we would be realigning Shackelford and Simpson into Finley Junior High, Dunaway, Clift, and Marvin into Junior High 4, Felty, Jimmy Ray into Howard, and then Wedgeworth and Northside into Coleman. And so that would be the ultimate goal in getting there. We do know that there's going to be at least a 2-year period with the opening of Waxahachie Creek High School before that 4th junior high would open. So yes, there would be a couple of years where we would not have that pure entire junior high feeder pattern going in. But unfortunately, that's just going to be that byproduct of waiting for junior high 4 to be constructed.
And again, when we in 2023, when we talked about our 17,000 student plan, it was a 2-phase plan. Phase 1 was the bond in 2023. Phase 2 was junior high 4 and likely 2 elementary schools that we said we'll likely come back and ask for that in the spring of 27, plus or minus. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a map with the current junior highs on it or no? This is all, well, that one that you have, because that's preliminary, but the other one's preliminary too, so it's
Yes,
not
ma'am.
the current boundaries?
Right.
Is it pretty much the current boundaries except for like?
The current boundaries are essentially tied to elementary boundaries, but the point that was just made that it's not necessarily contiguous. So Dunaway, being the outlier, goes to a junior high on the other side of town. We were kind of trying to avoid that with our rezoning process, but that was done at that time for demographic balance to make sure that we weren't overloading campuses one way or the other. But
is that already Finley, Howard, and Coleman, and then Cliff, Marvin, and Dunaway? Where do those go currently?
So right now, this is currently Howard with, I believe, Clift actually. So these 3 all go to Howard right now. Finley, and then all 3 of these currently go to Coleman.
No, Northside.
Oh, Northside, sorry. Northside does go to Shack and Northside are flipped in this, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Marvin, Wedge, and Shack go to Coleman. So then who goes Finley, Dunaway, Simpson, and Northside? Okay.
Yep. And then even that's kind of weird because Coleman sits in the Northside zone, but Northside goes to Finley.
Yeah.
So All right, so, woo, I'm going the wrong way. Here we go. All right, back to it. All right, so with this proposed alignment, it does change the expected enrollment numbers for Waxahachie and Waxahachie Creek. Last time when we were talking, Plan 1 was our preferred plan, and it had Waxahachie High about 150 to 300 kids, depending on what year we're looking at, difference of enrollment. So Waxahachie High was about 300 kids more than Waxahachie Creek at the upper end of the enrollment period, which would be 2034, 35. So within this plan, I've got Waxahachie High at about 48.5% economically disadvantaged, Waxahachie Creek at about 54% economically disadvantaged. I'm in the ballpark. I'm pretty close on the two. You know, without splitting up elementaries, that's about as good as I'm going to get. When I look at total enrollment, Dr. Averitt was telling us that 27/8 is the opening of Waxahachie Creek. We anticipate that to be freshman, sophomore only. So this would be junior, freshmen, and sophomores. So 29/30 would be the first year of all of them. I've got about a 250 student delta between Waxahachie High and Waxahachie Creek, but both very manageable enrollments. About 1,700 students and 1,950 students in a 3,200 student building, very manageable. But you see the growth expected in the Waxahachie High School zone. I'm now, if I come out to 34, 35, I've got about 100 student delta between the two enrollments of those two campuses. Both, again, sitting about 2,100, 2,050 total students, which is great. Plenty of room for programs, plenty of room for campus operations, but not overtaxing any one campus in favor of the other. Yes, ma'am.
What is the capacity of Waxahachie Creek?
3,200, just like Waxahachie High.
Yeah.
Why are there numbers for Creek on 24, 25, and 25, 26?
Well, because
you
the
can't
the
split.
demographic program,
Good
So-
question, great question.
the demographic program works off of the knowns right now. It does not do the hypotheticals, and so that's why.
Like if that building was open today, those are the.
Yes, ma'am. So if we pulled zoning today, this is exactly what it would look like.
So basically split that in half and take that half and add it to that, and that's what that would look like.
Yep. So we're having to do some fun math, you know, to get real expectations in those 2 years, because again, this is assuming full opening, and we're talking about a phase-in plan.
1,700 was a lot.
Yeah. So right now,
Correct.
we would love it if there were only about 1,500 students in Waxahachie High, but it's double that because Creek doesn't exist yet. So anyway, that's the demographic program as is. Really goes off of today's known, and then you update it annually with more student data, and it gets better and better.
What is the projected, like the year Creek opens as freshman and sophomore campus, 27, 28? What's the projected enrollment going to be for that versus Waxahachie High School?
So right now, our student grade level bands, when they get to 8th and 9th grade, have about 1,000 students each in them. So if we're assuming that this is going to roughly split our high school enrollment in half, we would expect roughly 500 for freshmen and 500 for sophomore upon opening. So I would expect about 1,000 students upon opening at Waxahachie Creek, and I would expect about 2,000 or 2,500, 2,600 here. That would kind of be my expectation. Then the next year I'd expect another 500 students at Creek, which would be about 2,100 at WHS and about 1,600 at Waxahachie Creek. So now that is pure,
Projection, yeah.
well, pure no grandfathering, no transfers. That's the hard and fast. Here's the line, go where you go.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So up there it says capacity for the current high school is 3,000. Were you saying that's also 3,200? Are they both going to be the same?
So when we're looking at capacities, we look at two different things, and it's unfortunately a little misleading on here. We look at functional capacity, which is kind of where we start feeling the pinch and we start having to really limit options and programs and choices. And then we look at maximum capacity. So 3,000 is kind of that sweet spot where we start really getting concerned. Do we need portables? Do we need to talk about a new building construction? If we wait till 3,000 to build a new high school, it's going to take 3 years. We're going to be well above it. So that's too late.
Yeah, that max capacity you're talking, the room is never dark, right? Like the teacher is never in their classroom when there's a conference period. There's always somebody in that room.
Yeah.
That's a never dark room, so that's what that gets at.
Yep. So 3,000 is kind of that action point for us. We'd really like to keep it there or less, because above that, now we're starting to have to talk about portables. We're starting to have to talk about limiting selections for students. I'm sorry?
Isn't that where we are currently?
We are. We're 3,150-ish, or the expectation of 3,150 for next year.
Yeah.
So, which is why, a couple of years ago in 23, we said, hey, this isn't going to work. We got to do something different. And so Waxahachie Creek was born.
Knowing it's a 3-year lead time. Takes a year to design the building and 2 years to build it.
Yeah.
So overall, with our third iteration of a high school plan, we really like where we're getting out here in terms of expected enrollment. I don't look like one is outgrowing the other to an unsustainable model. So it feels like I've got some growth opportunities in both zones. And I'm also not sacrificing one campus for the other. It looks a lot like our community. Our community is roughly 49–50% economically disadvantaged. I'm pretty much in the same boat with both of my campuses. So I feel pretty good. I kind of like this one. But that was really the after product of coming up with junior high feeders, and that was really important to us because we knew that regardless of 2 high schools, we got to figure out where students are going to go from elementary into junior high. And so we do have this plan. This is our junior high feeder pattern. It does anticipate junior high number 4 on the ground, but we looked at the numbers the other day. Our current junior high feeder patterns work just fine until junior high 4 is opened. So that's our ace in the hole at this point, is we're still okay. We will have some non-pure junior high feeders for a couple of years until that junior high is open. But from a capacity standpoint, we looked the other day and all of the junior highs were going to be in that 900 student range, 900 to 950. So we're not pushing 1,200 students at any junior high, and realistically, we will be just fine until junior high number 4 opens. But this gives you an idea of, again, having that connected schools to where I don't have the Dunaway situation where it's disconnected and going to Findlay like I currently do, but I have more of it's not really a neighborhood junior high, but you can almost kind of consider it just because they're from certain areas of the community. When I do this, I do look at, again, I'm looking at my enrollment and I'm looking at kind of where we're looking. If I look long term, I see pretty good utilization of my junior high campuses. Again, we would be talking, if the community approves a bond in 27, I'm looking at the opening of junior high 4 in 29. And from there forward, I'm really looking at pretty stable, pretty consistent enrollment numbers at each of my 4 junior highs, which is great. That's really good utilization of my campuses. One area of concern for us is that this 68% economically disadvantaged is a little out of alignment with my other 3 junior highs. So we know as an administration, we're going to have to add additional support to that junior high campus when it's above 60% economic disadvantage. So that's something that we're going to have to plan on as administration. What exactly that support looks like, we'll have to work with campus principal to determine what their needs are. It may be interventionist, it may be social work help, it may be additional administrators. We'll have to get with the campus and determine what the best need, best fit on that campus will be. So that was the junior high plans that we were looking at, and we are aware of that being a little bit out of alignment when it comes to economically disadvantaged. A couple of options we've been talking about in the last couple of town halls were related to transfers and grandfathering. So right now the plan consists of a one-time transfer option. So if you are zoned for Waxahachie Creek and there's an academic program that is not offered at Waxahachie Creek High School and you would like to be a part of that academic program at Waxahachie High School, we're looking to offer you a one-time transfer as long as you're a member of that program. If you quit being a member of that program. So our example last time, we used the culinary arts program. The commercial culinary kitchen is only going to be here. It's not going to be at Waxahachie Creek. Students at Waxahachie Creek will be able to get the same learning experience through a more traditional family consumer sciences program, but it will not have this commercial kitchen. So if there's some reason in the world a student would need this commercial kitchen for that education experience, we would allow that one-time transfer for a student to be part of that academic program. What we are not talking about is athletics as an academic program. So we are not considering a transfer for athletics at this point. Now, if a student does transfer for the culinary arts program and they are also on the basketball team, they're welcome to participate in the athletics that are on this campus if that's the campus they attend. But the caveat is the moment they quit being a member of this academic program, they go back to their zoned home campus and there's no more transfer, which means their participation in that activity would cease at this campus as well. They would go back to their home campus. So that's the caveat on the academic program transfer, a one-time. All of our transfer options would assume the student provides their own transportation. We do not have the busing capability to drive all over the district, picking up ones and twos to go for a grandfathering option. So students would have to provide their own transportation for that. We also are considering a grandfathered student option. So if a student has attended Waxahachie High School, this really would only impact the first years or the sophomores at opening of Waxahachie Creek. If a student has attended Waxahachie High and has earned 1 credit towards graduation, it's a low bar, but has earned 1 credit towards graduation, then we would consider allowing them to grandfather themselves and stay at Waxahachie High School. So with that, again, they would have to provide their own transportation, but it would only be good for that student that had earned the 1 credit. It would not be good for siblings who would be coming behind them. It would not be good for anybody else, in their lineal history or friends or families. It would be for that student who had earned that credit. We made the distinction that summer school is not a credit earned on this campus. So it would not be, you would have to have been here. Essentially, you would have had to have been a freshman on this campus, earned a credit towards graduation, be zoned towards Waxahachie Creek, and decided that there's no academic program or anything else you want to be a part of, but you really want to just stay here. Okay, we'll consider that. So that's where we're sitting right now with grandfathering. Yes, ma'am.
What if they, like in my situation, I will have a freshman when Creek opens and a junior. So my junior will be here because he doesn't have a choice to go to Creek. Now, if I'm zoned to Creek, will I have to then get my children to both schools, or will there be some sort of like sibling clause, like my son can't go to Creek, so he won't have that option because he's gonna be too old. But will I have to take my kids to both schools? Or is there gonna be like a sibling clause in that kind of instance?
So that's a really good question.
That's been brought up a few times. So
yeah, it has. And so we're still looking into a sibling clause. We just don't have it far enough along to actually put it on the slide and talk, honestly about it.
She and I were talking about this is the busing side of it. So like, we live in one house with these 2 kids that are gonna be zoned to 2 different schools. Not saying that's gonna happen, but like if we're zoned to Creek, but I have one at Waxahachie High School, are there gonna be 2 buses that come to that location to pick up my daughter who will go to Creek and my son who goes to the high school? Or will it be like they get on the same bus and one bus takes some of the kids to Creek and one takes some of them to the high school?
Yeah, so realistically, they would get on the same bus and we would have to work out a transfer system for those students that are zoned for Creek but do not go to Creek.
So if we do that, is Creek gonna have a different start time because then there's a transfer from all those kids because that'll be for 2 years that kids will have to be like transferred over.
The juniors and the seniors of 27.
So, yeah, we'll definitely have to work through those situations, and we may have to come up with a sibling clause to help alleviate some of that stress. We've also talked about, maybe we open up Waxahachie Creek for juniors if they would like. I don't know. The problem is, at some point, you're always going to have that exception in there somewhere. So we're going to have to make our best, determinations as the situations arise.
Juniors. So this is the other side of that. Like, what if I know there's like a handful, and I know it's just a handful of kids every year that are freshmen or sophomores that are good enough to be on a varsity team of some sort, right? Whether that be football, basketball, volleyball, whatever. What about those kids who are not going to have that opportunity at Creek because there's not going to be a varsity?
There will not be a varsity for 1 year. So they will open, Creek opens in 27, which is right in the middle, and Coach, please stop me where I'm wrong. Creek opens right in the middle of a UIL realignment. So in that year of opening, they would not play varsity. They would play varsity starting in 28, 29. And so, yes, that very first year, to your point, if we have a freshman who's good enough to play on varsity and they're zoned to Creek, their freshman year, they wouldn't be playing on varsity. They would be at Waxahachie Creek. That sophomore year, there is a varsity program. It's not going to be a 6A varsity school, likely, because of the 2 campus. If I'm talking 500 kids, and 500 kids, likely won't be 6A either. Well, depending on where the cutoff is. So right now it's 2250, I believe, is the cutoff for 6A. And in that scenario, Waxahachie High still could be 6A, but I'm looking at a 1,500 student max for Waxahachie Creek upon opening. They're not going to be in the same UIL alignment. One might be a small 5A or a large 4A. I don't know where that line is. This is all also conjecture because that line will continue to move every time we do a realignment. But yeah, so I mean, we'll have to look at siblings. We'll have to look within how we would foster that. Hey, if we draw the line here, what do we do with juniors and seniors? If they're going here, you know, what about siblings? So, good point.
I mean, I know I work for the district, so I can choose where my kid goes, but like,
And another
I
thing,
know that it doesn't just affect me.
from the parent
Yeah,
side.
absolutely.
The busing is one issue, but like if you have 2 kids in band and they're
Right.
having practices and I've gotta pick them both up, the high schools aren't near each other. You know, so if I have to pick up 2 kids in the evening at 8 o'clock and they're on different sides of town, you know what I mean? Like that's kinda hard.
Mm-hmm. I get it, but honestly, short of having a hour difference in start time, the busing wouldn't solve it either. I wouldn't have enough equipment to do all of that
Well, that's
within
why
a
I was
10-minute
wondering
gap.
if they were gonna ride
Yep.
like the same bus, or is there gonna be like buses dedicated to Creek and buses dedicated to the high school, and my kids just get on 2 different buses? Like, you know what I mean? Or are
Yep.
they gonna get on the same bus and go to 2 different schools?
Yep, I get you.
Do you know what most districts do? Do they have a different start time when they split from like 1 to 2 or?
I really don't know.
Buy a bunch more buses or like?
I can't imagine, given the cost of
I
a
could
bus.
tell you that some districts are a lot less accommodating to these kind of things. You know, when they open, they're like, this is the zone, this is where you're going. They don't really talk about any of these things. So that's Brian's shaking his head. Brian worked in a multi-high school district and knows that. But yeah, I know the question about, you know, varsity athletics as a freshman. You're right. It can happen. It is rare. It's exceptionally rare
There was a freshman on the volleyball
on the
team
foot.
this year.
There was. Yeah, I know who she is. I know her name, and I know she's pretty special. But there are not a lot of those.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
There's like a handful every year, right?
Yeah, but we know that does exist. But from my understanding, from what I've read, and folks that I've talked to who have gone through this process, and in fact, the guy that wrote his dissertation about it, when they drew the line, and said that's what's going to happen, and they just kind of weathered it. You know, we're trying to work with our community as much as we can because we know that this is a big deal. You know, it's a big deal, and we understand it.
Well, I think that first 2 years where you have the freshman, sophomore, like that's the biggest hardship.
The
for
correct.
parents
You're right.
because,
Yep.
But then once that's over, then it's like the line's the line.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And
Yep.
the buses go to where they go in
Right.
like 2 different places or something.
You're right. And that's what those first couple of years are going to be the ones that'll be the toughest.
Well, and getting through, I mean, this is our going from 1 comprehensive to 2. This is part of the reason we're doing this in 2025, having these conversations about zoning and attendance, so that it's not July of 2027 and you just roll this out and go, hey, here it is. It starts in a month. Good
Yeah.
luck.
Yeah.
So, let's see. So our next plan is we have another zoning meeting or another rezoning conversation on Thursday, and then we will come back in August. We'll have 2 more on August 7th, but our goal is to get to the August 11th, board meeting to present this to our board for their consideration and approval. So again, that we can have this decided early, have this out in the community, and that way it's not a surprise in August 2027 when Waxahachie Creek High School is opening. With that, we have done the question things as we go. No. That's great. It's timely when we're doing that live. But if anybody else would like to, or if you think of anything and would like to put it on the QR code as for a form, a feedback form, anything that you think of, we are making a frequently asked questions document that is getting uploaded or updated and uploaded to the website. So it'll be there to ask and questions and get feedback on. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned that this was high school plan 3. Is this most like what was 1?
This is very similar to 1, except for Marvin shifting from Waxahachie High to Waxahachie Creek. Yep, it does look very similar to.
Was the purpose of that just for the junior high feeders,
So it really was for the junior high feeders because we didn't have a junior high feeder plan at that point. We were still working through that and trying to figure out which way we were going to go. We went through 4 different plans for junior high feeders. We started with most economically disadvantaged and least and putting them together, but then you ended up with schools completely across town trying to settle on, and all 3 of our junior highs currently are pretty close to each other. So it's really hard to tell, you know, hey, Northside, you're going to get paired up with this other campus and you're all going to go to Howard. And it's not in either of your zones. You're just going to go do that because it fits capacity-wise, et cetera. So it became a real muddled mess as we did that. So then we started working with, okay, what if we do our current feeders and we just kind of lop one campus off here and there and make a junior high 4. But every time we did it, we could get really good on economically disadvantaged, but then we would look at utilization. And I would have 3 campuses at 1,000 and 1 at 560. And it didn't make sense. And so I would look at that same 560 campus for realistically the entire time of that timeline, going, this campus isn't growing. So this is not good utilization. So from a taxpayer standpoint, what am I doing? Why am I overburdening 3 campuses for the sake of this one that is flatlined and really is not growing because of the communities that are serving it? So we've gone through about 4 iterations, and while this one is not the best in terms of economically disadvantaged, in terms of using our campuses, having the pure feeders, and meeting all those other criteria that we'd established, it really is the best plan that we have at the moment. And realistically, flipping Marvin really only made a difference of about 200 kids in the other direction. So I had Waxahachie High with a higher enrollment than Creek, and it flipped it the other way to where Waxahachie Creek is a little bit higher than Waxahachie Creek.
And this prepares us for junior high 4 too, so there's less hardship when that.
And that was really one of our goals, was to try to already have a junior high plan in mind as well. We know that we're talking about Waxahachie Creek because that's the one that's opening first. But beyond that, we really don't want to keep moving groups and saying, oh, well, we bought this house and this was zoned to Howard, and why are you moving us again? No. We knew in 25 when we put this plan out that house, if it gets moved, will be moved one more time, and it will be serviced by this junior high when it opens.
So those Marvin numbers, is that just zoned to Marvin, or does that include if you lottery to Marvin?
That does include the lottery to Marvin.
So if you go to Marvin, no matter how you go there, then you're zoned.
The zoned ones will go back to their home campus for purpose of feeding into that junior high. So if I lotteried in
Marvin,
Yes.
not
for
Wildman.
Marvin and Wildman. So
But Marvin is zoned and lottery.
yes.
Correct.
So the zoned Marvin students will follow the path to junior high 4 and Waxahachie Creek.
Right.
If I'm a lottery student into Marvin and I live in the Shackelford zone,
Then you go to Shack.
then I would go to Findlay for junior, well, assuming junior high 4 is open, I would go to Findlay for junior high, and then I would go to Waxahachie High School for high school. Because I'm back in that, I live in that Shackelford
Not
zone.
wherever you
Yep.
live, not
Yep.
the school you attend.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yep. So we present it because it's easy. I mean, it's easy for people to see the divisions based off of the elementary plan. It's a little bit harder when you pull those lines up and it's now just junior highs. But because we have the pure elementary feeder into pure junior highs with that plan, that's why we showed the plan with the elementary feeders. So it'd be easier to kind of pinpoint, I'm in this elementary zone, I go to that high school or I go to that junior high.
So the proposed zone change, like you were talking about, the tiny piece of Dunaway that you pulled out of
Yes.
and into Wedgeworth or whatever. If this plan goes into like if the board approves this plan, will that tiny little piece take effect? Like, will those kids then go to Wedgeworth starting?
That would be,
next
so
year
right
or
now,
whatever? Like, will
yeah.
will the elementary zones that changed, will they go into effect?
So there's 5 students that live in that zone. 2 of them already go to Wedgeworth. 1 of them goes with a parent to another campus. 1 of them's a lottery somewhere else. So it really would impact 1 or 2 students. But yes, to your question, it would be, it would take effect now and go forward because it's a squirrely little line. We did that for future economic development purposes, but the plans for that have kind of changed a little bit, and there's really not the need to split that large development.
Is that really the only thing that would change for next year?
That is the only thing that is proposed to change for next year.
So the percentages of economically disadvantaged, when you're talking about 4 junior highs, you had, that was like almost 68%, right?
Mhm.
Junior high 4. And and the other, one of them was at like 50-something%, and the other two were in the 40s.
48.
High
Yep.
40s.
Will that affect their Title I status? Because the
Yeah.
junior highs all get a lot of money from Title I right now.
If you're 40%, you get it. So
Okay.
40% up, you get Title I funds.
Okay.
So, like we talked about, when we build a staffing plan for junior high number 4, and we know that if the ECODIS numbers are going to be what we think they're going to be, then that's what we would do. We
They'll
would,
get more Title I funds than.
and we will talk to that principal and go, what do you need to service these kids? Do you need an extra reading interventionist and a math interventionist? Do you need would a social worker help you? Would an assistant principal, would another counselor? I mean, so we really look at that to make sure, because we get the fact that a 20% difference that's significant.
Right, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying it wouldn't take away the Title I. I mean, it might take away some of the funds, but they
Yep.
would still be considered Title I and get.
Correct.
So there's still
There's
a
That's still a substantial amount that each of the junior highs get.
yes,
Yes.
ma'am. Still a Title I campus. So
Yes.
still campus wide. They will still get Title I funds. The only significant difference, yes, they will take a cut, but
For sure.
anytime you add one more piece to the pie, everybody's going to take a little bit of a haircut. So yes, they will take a cut from adding another junior high, but they will not lose their Title I funding or their Title I status.
Great questions. Thank you.
I used to work in the Title I office at Stock Fair, so
Ooh, I went to Cy-Fair.
You're talking to a Sci-Fair alumnus?
Yeah,
I worked there for.
well, Cy Creek, but yes, I
You
mean,
went to Wachi Creek?
yes,
That's where my husband went.
so much better than Cy-Fair.
Yeah.
Please tell me they don't see this.
That's
That's
funny.
where my husband went.
So it's all over the interwebs now.
Yeah, I know, it is. Now we're not even zoned for Cy Creek High School anymore. Yeah, it is what it is.
Well, thank y'all for coming.
Thank you.
And thank those of you that are on the World Wide Web watching this on Facebook and watch. Appreciate y'all being with us. We will have another one this Thursday at 10 a.m.
10 a.m.
10 a.m. right here in the same place. So if you weren't able to attend today or you'd like to come again on Thursday. And our next ones will be after that will be August the 7th. So thanks again.